probably.
We could have found a better areas for your teeth to go.
So kidding. No kidding.
I bet you've been in and out of that.
I was a member there for a long time.
Yeah.
It's 5:30. We'll call the August 18th meeting of the Whitley County Consolidated Board of Trustees to order. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda are presentations, and Lori Shipman, WCCS Collaborative Executive Director.
Can you guys hear me? I'm
Yes.
usually never accused of being too quiet, so it's nice to see all of you. Happy new school year. It's like we all survived the first day and the first Monday, so those are big hurdles. So congratulations. It seems like it was pretty smooth sailing. I'm going to go through the beginning part of the presentation. It might be a little quick just because a lot of it's the same information that I presented when I was here kind of late winter, early spring. Maybe. Oh, there we go. As you know, we have the WCCS Collaborative. We're a nonprofit charitable organization established to increase student outcomes through collaboration. We are charged with monitoring trends and goals for the Next Gen SIG grant, and that's a big part of what I'm going to be presenting tonight. We serve as the convening organization for all the Forward NGL work. We provide an avenue for charitable giving to WCCS, and we assist, advise, and advocate for the school district. Here's a list of our board members. And it identifies that our operating funds were provided through that Next Gen SIG grant that the school received. Some of our additional supports I just have listed here are consultants and coaches that we have from Ford NGL and from Empower Schools, and all of our expert advisors, some of whom I drag to all of our board meetings, but they have invaluable insight and information for us. These are our board participation norms. So everything we do and the work that we have done, we have worked to try to align with your guys' pillars. Hopefully you all recognize this document since it's out of your strategic plan. The Ford NGL work, I'm not going to get too heavily into tonight. I'm really here to focus on the Next Gen SIG year-end data. And the majority of that is going to be under these first three pillars: comprehensive student experience, employee experience, and parent and community experience. So these are our goals that we get reports on every month that fall under the comprehensive student experience. Now, some of these goals, which you might remember from earlier this year when I came to visit, we don't have data for on a monthly basis. It's end of year goal, like graduation rates and teacher retention rates. So sometimes we don't have data points to monitor every month, but we do have things that we are looking at every month, like discipline and chronic absenteeism. Under parent and community experience, some of this is, I guess some of these are a little bit more of our Ford NGL goals, but there is a lot of crossover with our Next Gen SIG grant. And then last but not least, employee experience, and that's employees of the corporation. So how are we doing on these goals? This is our year-end data. So our overall high school attendance rate, our goal is 95%, which is an aggressive goal. At the end of last year, we were at 91.96, and that has come up this year all the way to 94.14%. We were really close to hitting that goal. And I think I'm sure Brady would agree that having that attendance dean has really, really helped. I am going to put my glasses on because I have tiny print on my spreadsheet here. But we did have 27 students at the high school who had perfect attendance this year. And that was an all-time high for the high school. Chronic absenteeism, our goal is 56%. And basically that is that we want to see the number of students with at least a 94% attendance rate divided by the school total number of students enrolled in the school. So last year we were at 48.8, and look how much we've improved. We're up to 64.92% of students that have a 94% attendance rate. So lots of improvements. Expulsions per year, and I think we've talked about this. Suspicions and suspensions and expulsions. No, we did not expel that many students. This is suspensions and expulsions. Our goal is 85, and I will tell you a little bit of the reason why we came up with that goal. I think from the time that when the grant was submitted to the time that the world evolved a little bit, we had this 1 year that was probably a little bit of a one-off where we had this really low rate of basically problems with suspensions and expulsions. And so at that point in time, we got really cocky and said, wow, let's really make a super aggressive goal here of 85. And I think that what we have found is that's a little bit of a challenge. At the year end last year, we were at 96. This year, we were at 151. I think that what we're going to see happen, our board meets next week, and we'll be looking at adopting our goals for this next year. I think we're going to put together a sub goal. We're still going to look at this number here, but we're going to look at a sub goal of, is this 151 different students, or is this 30 students with 151 incidences? I think those are two different conversations. So we're going to drill that data down a little bit more in this next school year. High school graduation rate was already really high. It's even higher, a whole percentage point higher this year. Our goal was 95%, and we came in at 95.25%. Our 11th grade SAT performance, we're a little under here, and I think we'll probably be talking more about, what do we think is contributing to that. Our goal is 29%, and we were at 28.6 last year and down to 22.7 this year. I think some of the just kind of conversationally things that we've talked about is with the success of all of our CTE programs. A lot of kids are maybe in their 11th grade year not seeing a lot of value in the SAT because they're not thinking they're going to college. It's not something that, my nerdy senior right now is getting ready to take the SAT for the 3rd time because that's just not the score he wants. And not every student is doing that because they're not thinking they're going to college. So I think that's something that we need to continue to monitor, but I do think that there is some merit and value in that explanation.
Lori, can I ask a question on that one?
Sure.
Your goal is 29% of what? Of juniors that take the SAT, get a certain score on the SAT, or?
29% of 11th grade students meet performance benchmarks on the SAT. So, and all of the 11th graders have to take the SAT. So it would be 29% of all 11th graders. And these goals are what the things that we're measuring were what we submitted in the SIG grant. For the most part, those goals are what we submitted in the SIG grant. Some of them have been adjusted a little bit, but and that gets included in our report to the DOE every year. But for the most part, this is what we've been tracking based on where we were when we submitted this grant application.
So you could have a correlated question. How many of you intend to go to college?
Oh, that's a good idea.
See how that measures.
See if we could drill it down into that.
if you have 80% say, I don't care, I'm not going,
Right.
that would, like you said, that would make more sense.
Yeah, good suggestion.
And you may remember I shared a little bit of the SAT data last year or last month. And right where we're at is pretty much right where the state is at as well.
Mhm.
And part of that same conversation was had during the state board meeting in terms of, it's not really an accurate measure because everybody takes it. So just as Lori's saying.
All right. And college and career coursework, we ended at 63.2% last year. Our goal is 70%. We don't have all of that data reported yet. Things that are included in that are graduating seniors. We want 74% of graduating seniors will pass an AP, dual credit, or IB exam. Did you guys discuss that at all, like at the state level? I'm wondering, that seems to fit under that AP, not necessarily dual credit, but AP. How many of those kids are thinking they're college bound? So Brady's working on getting all the rest of that data. So that's a lot of dual credit information to track down from a lot of places. All right. So this is under our parent and community experience pillar. So our first measure here is about employer satisfaction. So these are our kids that are going out, they're doing work-based learning experiences. My son who graduated last year did a work-based learning experience at Parkview. At the end of that, his supervisors at Parkview are sent out a survey to see, hey, how well did this work for you? Was this a good placement? How can we improve? What's your satisfaction with this? We are hoping to maintain a score of 4.5 on the survey question of overall, how satisfied have you been with the work-based learning program? And that's on a scale of 1 to 5. We are at 4.68 last year, 4.63 this year. And I know I had a note in here that of the survey responses, the majority of those, like a vast majority, rated their response with a 5. There were a couple at 4, and only 2 at a 3, and no one rated it at a 1 or a 2. So overall, people that are partnering with the school on this work-based learning are very satisfied with how it's going. 12th graders in DOE work-based learning level 2. We want 80% of our 12th grade students participating in a Department of Education rated work-based level 2 work-based learning opportunity. We were at 73.09 last year. Pretty significant jump here to 86.3% to finish off this year. Pathway completion, 50% of our class of 24, or this year would have been the class of 25, will earn a CTE concentrator or completed a pathway status. Last year, our goal is 50%. Last year, 50.2, up this year to 52.9. And this one I loved. I mean, we more than almost doubled this goal here on credential completion. That 25% of students would earn a state recognized certification for the graduating senior class. Last year, 19%. This year, 36.6%. That's just incredible. So we have a lot to celebrate and be very proud of with our work-based learning program. Last but not least, teacher retention. How are we doing? I'm going to say this seems like a miracle to me in light of Senate Bill 1, that our teacher retention is at 90.5% at the end of the school year. I was at 73.09% the year before. And of course, how do our customers feel like we're doing? We have our data of how our kids are achieving academically, but how do our customers feel like we're doing? You might remember that we talked a lot about this at the last time I was here about how we are going to measure this. We want to know how our customers are feeling and who they are. Our customers are defined as our students, our families, and our staff. And this is a very different measurement than achievement scores. We utilize a net promoter score. You probably remember my next slide with, all the, how does it work on a scale of 1 to 10? How likely are you to recommend your school to a friend? Respondents giving a rating between 1, which is not likely at all, to 10, which is extremely likely. And your customers will fall into 3 categories. They're either promoters, which means they respond with a score of 9 or 10. They're passives, which is a score of 7 or 8, or detractors, which is a score of 1 through 6. So in the calculations, you allow for a lot more detractors. You give detractors a larger weight than you do promoters. Here's just kind of an illustration to help you visualize as we go into these. What is a good net promoter score? Anything above a 0 is amazing. Above 20, favorable. Above 50, excellent. Above 80 is world-class. And earning a net promoter score above 0 is pretty difficult to accomplish when you think about the math. So here's where we are. The first line here is what our information was from 12/31, not 12/34. I created a whole new day on the calendar. What do you know? Just what I want, more days in the year. So this was mid-year is the top line, and the bottom line is how we finished at the school year. This is our student net promoter score. And I want to give kudos to Brady because he worked really hard at the high school, made a video explaining what we're doing here. So everybody had a pretty consistent message. We did some incentives to try to get more students to respond. And you can see we had over 300 more respondents in the high school, which is pretty awesome when you think about May and the mind of a high schooler. So back in December, our net promoter score at the high school was a -7. And that has bumped up to a -1. The middle school, and you can see, you kind of can correlate here, the drop in the number of respondents at the middle school where we had a promoter score of 1, 250 less people completed the survey, and the net promoter score dropped to a -5. The elementary, pretty consistent, 32 to 36, even with a lot fewer respondents.
Lori, that's a fairly significant drop in responses at the middle school. Do we have any idea why?
My guess is that it had to do with timing. When I think about what my daughter was doing at this time, it was a lot of testing. And I feel like we need to work with Empower Schools to get the survey out at perhaps a different time of the year. To me as a parent, I feel like when we come back from spring break, it is just pedal to the metal. School's over after spring break is what it feels like as a parent. So I think if we can try to perhaps bump even the fall one up to maybe more mid-fall, and then try to get this second survey done before spring break, I think that'll give us a little more accurate picture about how people are feeling. Here's our family net promoter scores. High school parents from a 23 to a 10, still above 0. Middle school went from 0 to 2, above 0, again, great. Elementary school, 40, down to 28. That could also fall into that same category in my mind. As a parent, you're like, it's the end of the year, we're doing all this testing, not because the school says that we have to do it. It's mandated. They have to do it. And I know sometimes as a parent that's kind of a hard time of year, especially with littles. Staff net promoter scores, very, very, very high. Still, very, very high. 60 to 55, 55 to 63, 53 to 49. And when you think about just what was going on at the state level with Senate Bill 1 in May, that's that's still that's a pretty impressive score that your teachers and faculty members feel that strongly about your school. It's a hard time to be a teacher this late spring. Sense of belonging, this was another area that I think after we did the first round of surveys, we thought a lot about, okay, well, if you're between the ages of 35 and 60, the sense of belonging might mean something different than if you're 16 years old. So I know that at the high school level, Brady did on his video talked a lot about, okay, what do we mean? What are we actually asking for here? But this is our question that we asked about their sense of belonging, students, families, and staff. Do you feel a sense of belonging at your school? Here's our student reported sense of belonging. Again, spring scores or fall scores up on the top line, end of year scores there on the bottom. Really very consistent and very, very high. Here we are with the family reported sense of belonging, 51 to 46, 54, 56, 74, 69. So again, very consistent. And look at that, 80% of your middle school and elementary school staff reported a sense of belonging. That's just awesome. So overall, that's what lets us know how people are feeling about being at school and also whether they would recommend Whitley County Consolidated Schools to their friends and family. That's the end of all of my data today. Were there any other questions that you guys didn't get to ask?
Just great information, really helpful.
Super.
Gives all of us an opportunity to decide, where do we go from here, but
Yeah.
really appreciate your endeavors in helping us out.
Sure, no problem. That's what we're here for. Normally I would stay till the end of the meeting, but I have a departing college student who still hasn't packed his clothes in a bag, and we are leaving in the morning. So thank you for appreciating my struggle today. Have a good night.
Thank you, Lori.
you.
Next item is presentation on the impact of Senate Act 1. I believe, Todd, you're going to introduce our.
Yeah, thanks,
guest.
Mr. Smith. Tonight we have April Fitterling with Policy Analytics. So they've been helping a lot of the schools. They've been doing it for a while now, but especially this year with all the changes from the state, we felt like it would be good for April to come and present to the board tonight, to kind of share what's going on at the state level and how it impacts here locally. So, April.
Do you have? Perfect. Okay.
Perfect, thank you. Let me just make sure I get this going before I start talking.
Let's try this.
Okay, well, I will start out with, thank you, Todd. I'm April Fitterling with Policy Analytics. We are based out of Indianapolis and we do revenue forecasting based on tax-based generated revenue clients. But prior to Policy Analytics, I was the Chief Financial Officer at Warsaw Community Schools for 8 years. So total of 11 years at Warsaw, and I'm excited to just be down the road to share with you tonight. So I will be talking about the changes that Senate Enrolled Act 1 has done to our funding for school districts. It's pretty simple math calculation. So we'll talk about that right now, hopefully. Oh, shoot.
I'll drive for you. How about that?
Okay, perfect. All right. So we're going to talk about tax rate, tax levy or revenues, and we'll touch really quickly on the impact to the taxpayers. So if you will skip to the next slide, we're going to just talk about the simple mechanics of school funding. Okay, so as you've known, we have been looking at a rate-based system. It's net assessed value times rate equals your revenue. And as we have been like the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years, net assessed value has been growing. So we've been able to manage to a rate, but generate additional revenues. So as net assessed value goes up, you can keep the same rate, but generate more revenues, or drop your rate and keep the exact same revenues. Well, now with the Senate Enrolled Act 1 changes, we are seeing a trend because of deductions being created that net assessed values will be driving down. So what does that do to the calculation? To generate the exact same levies revenue that you had in the past, you would need to increase your tax rate. So what we're talking to schools across the state is managing to a levy instead of a rate. And what does that look like? So we'll skip to the next slide. We'll talk quickly about the changes that Senate Enrolled Act 1 did. So they are, thank you so much. First one is they are phasing out the standard deduction. And one thing that I'd like to put in here first is you'll see this is over a 6-year impact period. So we're not talking 1 year, 2 year. This is going to take a while to be fully in effect, unless we have legislation changes in the time frame. But this is what we know now, and what we're sharing to districts is it's not just a 1 or 2 year thing. This is 5 to 6 years out, and you've got to be prepared for it. So as they are phasing out the standard deduction, they are increasing the supplemental deduction. So essentially, by the end of 2031, a home's value will be taxed on 1/3 of its value. So that's first change. Second change, yeah,
When you say standard deduction, are we talking like the homestead credit?
yes, the standard homestead deduction. So essentially they're phasing it out because it was at a flat 48,000, but as your home value grew, that percentage became less. So they wanted to make it as the assessed values grow, the percentage does increase as well. So I'm talking quickly, and I'm so sorry. Please interrupt with questions because I could be here all night. Okay, so the next thing that they're adding is a homestead credit. So it's a homestead credit on taxpayers' tax liability bills. So for simple calculation, it's a 10% of max liability or a max of $300. So let's just say for simple math, my net assessed value on my home is $200,000. My tax cap is $2,000. So my liability is $2,000. But this additionally created tax credit takes $200 off. That's 10%. So my liability becomes $1,800. So what are we calling that? That's an additional circuit breaker being created. It's revenue that districts will not be receiving. Yes.
Does this apply to everybody, homeowners?
Yes. Everybody that is filed for the homestead.
But it doesn't apply to farmland or
No.
commercial product?
No, hold on to that. The next thing is they're making excessive property tax deductions for that 2% category for non-residential agriculture, long-term care facilities. So they're making, no, you're good. You're good. So they're making additional deductions up to 33.3% in 2031, and they're changing the ag base rate calculation. So it's not just one area that's getting changes, it's across the board. Next, they're changing the business personal property tax deduction. So prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, there was a de minimis amount of $80,000. And so any piece of equipment that was valued at $80,000 and below was tax exempt. Well, now they've increased that minimum value to $2 million. So if businesses have equipment under the $2 million value, now they are pulled out of the assessed value calculation. So in our calculations, we are able to take a look at what is filed and what is submitted into the tax system under $2 million, and we're able to pull that out of our calculation and show you what impact that has. What we don't know is what the additional changes that they made to business personal property tax will do. So prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, you had a piece of equipment and it would follow the depreciation scale down to 30% and stay at that 30%, and they'd be taxed at that. Well, now any new piece of equipment in 2025 can follow the depreciation scale down to 0. So businesses are going to get creative. They're either going to sell old equipment, buy new equipment, and value it down to 0 so they can be tax exempt. Or create an LLC, buy their old equipment, that's new equipment, now they can value it down to 0. That's not factored into the calculation because I cannot predict the future. So that's business personal property tax changes. And finally, the change from 80 cents to 70 cents for controlled projects to go directly to a referendum. So those are all the changes. This doesn't really have a calculation change to your net assessed value, but we just like to show it just so everyone knows that this was changed as well. Okay, so I'm going to skip over the next 2 slides because it just shows you a little bit of your composition for 2025 for your net assessed value and what the projection is with all of these changes by 2031. Not many changes. You guys have a nice kind of diverse setup of your property tax holders. So that's the net assessed value. And the next one is the tax burden shift, a couple percentages, but no major swings. Okay, so think about that calculation. Net assessed value, as it goes up, your revenues can go up. So net assessed value goes up until there are deductions created to drive, the gross assessed value can go up, but the net assessed value is being driven down by these deductions being created. So here's kind of a history. You see the green line is your gross assessed value line. As you'll see, it trends up because it follows the the home market-based system. That's what it's assessed on. So as home values grow, and that's the trend, you'll see the green line grow. The blue line is the net assessed value. So that's gross assessed value minus all of the deductions get you your net assessed value. We've been seeing that trend up until 2026 when all of the deductions start to happen. So you'll see the orange line is what we're projecting for your net assessed value going forward. And you'll see it dip down a little bit and then kind of stabilize in 2031 and then start to climb. That's because all of the deductions are implemented and we have new, like a base floor to go forward. So talking about net assessed value driving down, we are doing 2 scenarios for every district that we've partnered with just to say, okay, if you manage to the exact same levy revenue that you had in 2025, what would that do to your tax rate pre-Senate Enrolled Act 1 and post-Senate Enrolled Act 1? It doesn't take on doesn't talk about debt falling off or issuing. We're just talking a flat levy. What would it look like? So in the top line, you'll see the levy of just over 4.8 million being held steady until 2035. Pre-Senate Enrolled Act 1, you'll see that the rate would have been able to dip down to get that exact same levy revenue. But prior or post Senate Enrolled Act 1, you'll see how the tax rate has to climb to just meet that exact same revenue. Looking at the rate scenario, you'll see that we took the 26-cent debt rate and held that steady. And prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, your levies would have increased. You can see it bump up to over 5 million, 5.5, 5.7, up to 6.9. That's as if net assessed values were going up, the rate would have been able to stay the same and you're getting more revenue. But post Senate Enrolled Act 1, to generate those exact same levies that you would have prior, the rate has to increase faster or at a higher rate than the levy scenario. So this is just a quick example of what would happen to the rate or the levy depending on which scenario you went with due to net assessed values driving down. Okay, so this is a line graph. I'm a numbers person, but some people like the pictures, the colors. The red is the levy scenario, the top line from the slide prior, and the teal line is the rate scenario from the slide prior. You'll see the dotted line is what would have happened to your rate or your levies prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, and the solid line is thereafter. So if net assessed values come into where we are projecting, by 2031, you could potentially be over that 40-cent threshold and be put into that subject to petition remonstrance and have to hold 2 hearings. So that is if net assessed values trend the way our projections were, but you're gonna be close to that line if you followed the rate scenario. If you follow the levy scenario, you're not even gonna be close, so you'd be in the clear. So you could do your controlled projects, just board approve and move forward. And then just a picture of what the total tax rate does. If the debt rate climbs, total tax rate climbs. Okay, so not only did they make those changes, they're also getting rid of local income tax. Unfortunately, there's two pieces to it. First one is called certified shares, and the district receives certified shares over $536,000. That is direct revenue to your operations fund. It's going away. Property tax relief. That goes to your homeowners applied to their property tax bills. It's not, it's on the smaller side that I've seen in the amount that they've set aside for that, but your homeowners will see a difference in their property tax liability because that's going away in 2028. So we'll take a look at what those impacts will be. So what we talked about prior was your debt service rate and your levies. Now we're going to talk about operations levy, because not only is debt service, but operations are both on property tax based generated revenue. So this line graph looks a little funky, and that is because you have some pension debt that is retiring in 2026. So that pension debt revenue now comes into your operations fund. Good news for your operations fund, good timing. But you'll see that in 2026, the homestead credit is creating an additional circuit breaker. So you'll see your operations levy drive down. It'll climb back up in 27 and then in 28, and it will actually kind of, if we were just looking at this without the certified shares included in it, your revenue would follow pretty similar to what it did prior. But if we take a look at your operations revenue, you're going to see that circuit breaker loss in 2026. Your levies will jump up in 27 because there's not the deductions, are the business personal property tax deductions don't have many changes for your circuit breaker. But in 2028, you'll see that dip back down in your operations levy due to that certified shares going away. So it's direct revenue not coming to the district. So talking about circuit breaker, somebody forgot to put in the legislation to protect the debt service fund. So unfortunately for 2026, we will see a circuit breaker loss to debt service and operations. Traditional circuit breaker, the debt service fund is protected. With this one, they forgot to protect it, and we are hearing that S&P will step up and say we cannot have municipalities default on their bond payments, so you're going to have to protect that debt service fund. But that circuit breaker just does not go away. So in 2027, if they protect it in 28, in 2027, the circuit breaker loss to your operations fund could be just over 633,000. So that's a pretty big circuit breaker loss to your operations fund.
Sorry to interrupt. What are the other municipalities doing? I mean, we're not the only group getting hurt in this way. What have you heard?
Well, the other municipalities are not being hurt as much. It's just how the funding calculation has fallen. So they're going to have to get creative, make some cuts here and there, but not like school districts. Yeah. So they, yeah, I will leave it at that. So, so if the debt service fund is protected, here is what would happen to your operations fund in this maroon line. And you'll see that the revenue in 2028 is pretty much flatlined to where you're at today. So as we know, everybody wants paid more. Fuel's not getting any cheaper. Utilities are not going to stop giving increases. What districts are going to have to do is get creative. So I am the bearer of bad news. I'm so sorry. So that's kind of an impact on your operations levy. finally, we'll talk a little bit about the impact to the taxpayer. So what the legislation has said is this was supposed to be historic tax breaks for homeowners. Well, in our projections, at the median AV of $234,200 for a home value in the Union Township taxing district, if their bills are $1,489 and 25, if you follow the levy scenario, basing your revenue on that, what is that, $91 to $92 they'll save in 2026? But then because their assessed value is going to climb on their home, the rates or their liability is going to climb up in 27, and then 28, it's going to climb even more because the PTRC is going away. So these are just, we just like to show it to say, okay, is what they intended happening to your taxpayer? Historic relief, $92, $91. This is just looking at an additional taxpayer in the Columbia City taxing district. So liability of 24, 26, almost, you know, a dip down in 26, but they'll see it continue to climb. So, and, oh, go ahead.
What percentage increase in assessed value are you using for this calculation?
We did a 2 to 4% increase.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, because that's
It's
a
a
little,
conservative.
yeah, it's a little lower than what we're
Yeah.
actually saying.
Yeah, so if they come in higher, that's great news. It'll bump up that first year a little bit. But then the deductions continue to go in place, so the net assessed value will drive down. So kind of if they come in higher, great, but I actually think your assessed values came in at 249 this afternoon, but I did not have a chance to dive in and look at them. So we'll be updating them. We'll work with Todd and his team to get the updated assessed values and get this report updated with actuals. So then you'll see the actual impact for 26 to have your actual net AV.
So what is the discussion at the state level for us to make up that lost revenue? Talk about that. Or are we just done?
Well, let's just say another district we talked to sat down with Representative Thompson because this is kind of his brainchild. And he said, well, let's just ride it out for a while.
Okay.
We'll see what
divided
happens.
by-
Yeah. So, I don't know what discussions they're having or what their game plan is to correct the ship, but you guys are seeing a circuit breaker loss increase. It's not good. Other districts are seeing literally zero revenue into their operations fund. So somebody is going to have to do something. So it's schools cannot sustain. I had one district ask if this is forcing to consolidation or they're wanting you to. I can't give a yes or no answer. I mean, what options do districts have? You cannot, I mean, you can only create so many students. You can't create a product and then charge more money for it. You run a referendum. That's it. That's the only way to generate more revenue. So, and nobody likes to hear that word. Nobody likes to talk about it. But districts across the state, we're probably going to be seeing historic amounts of referendums being ran in 2026 due to the legislation changes that they can only run them on even years. So if they have a referendum expiring, they've got it in 27 or 28, maybe run in 26. That way they know they're going to have that revenue. Or some districts that are going to see $0 in their operations fund because the circuit breaker has grown so high, they're going to have to just try and run a referendum. So.
And
Isn't there a limit?
what's the percentage of referendums that pass?
Oh gosh, off the top of my head, I don't want to give you an incorrect answer, but
Very good.
it's not awful, but when you're running 4 to 5 and one fails, that's a 75%. So but when you have 25 to 30 running, that can give you maybe a better percentage. So it's going to be an interesting year. Referendum consultants are going to be busy. But that's really what districts Besides getting creative and trying to do cost-saving measures for those losses, it's going to be an interesting time. But like you said, legislators are going to be in session next year and then the year after, and we're going to have another governor race, another presidential election by the time these are fully implemented. So, but this is what we know now. So.
Is there a limit on how big a funding referendum can be? Guys, I thought there was some cap, some magic number you couldn't go over, like, I don't know, 2.5 million. or
No, there's no real like cap, but it is what you feel that your community would support. And you would work with your bond counsel and you would work with your financial advisors to look at what a rate or a levy amount would work best for your district.
And the circuit breakers would then no longer apply to the new referendum.
Correct. Yep. And you could set a rate and manage to it, so you didn't have to go up to it. You could manage to a levy inside of that rate. You could give a max rate, I guess that's what I'm saying, and you wouldn't have to take all of that. But it's a tool, and it's about the only tool you have as a school district. So I will leave, I'm sorry, I'm going way longer than I planned, but I will leave you on these last few slides. They are just summary slides to kind of show you the certified levy projection, circuit breaker loss, and your net levy, and then your percentage circuit breaker going up, and then potential tax rates. I highlight on this slide in green the circuit breaker loss because that is what the biggest impact is for your district. So seeing $500,000 to $750,000 almost, 600,000. That's a big impact. That's a lot of teachers. That's a lot of support staff. So, well, thank you very much for having me tonight. I will work with Todd. If you have any follow-up questions, I'm just an email and 30 minutes down the road. So thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is celebrations.
I'll start us off. I want to introduce our two new SROs. So we have with us tonight, we have Tim Clark and his dog Jake. And then we have JJ Brannicky.
Dog.
So is Jake there?
See, we need James.
Like my dog.
Oh, my gosh.
And JJ Brannicky is our other new SRO. So we welcome them to WCCS. They've already been on the job, doing a great job, and thank them for being part of our staff.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And Jake.
I want to be Jake.
You can be.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Reef, the Director of Innovation and Career Tech Ed for Columbia City, Whitley County Consolidated Schools. First off, I really want to thank this and celebrate the amazing work of Whitley County's Technology Department. I think they are ones that we don't always think about, but at the same time you do when something goes wrong. So they have spent hours ensuring our students receive their new Chromebooks, ensuring systems are ready, and maintaining all that we already have in place. Specifically, Derek Heffelfinger, Tim Neller, and Sarah Liston have worked tirelessly to complete the Skyward migration with only really 4 weeks to do it. And with any migration, we found our issues, and those are good issues to find because that means that is the way that we can continue to improve our services, our systems, and our processes that we have in place to best support students, parents, staff, and employees. So very thankful for them. Recently, on a different note, Lori Hewer and I presented to the Redevelopment Commission here of Whitley County to share with them our programming work and exciting news surrounding our CTE and our CTE building on Radio Road. As part of this presentation, we reviewed the different stories and opportunities available to our students and community. The reference folder that I gave you before the meeting started, if you would just open that up briefly. Along the right-hand side were a number of press releases that I'm thankful to our communications director, Kennedy Sanders, for place. And just again, as a quick snapshot of the work that we've done over the past year or so, I think really resonates as we start the school year as far as where we've been and where we're going. So the first one that you see there is that we are expanding our career and tech ed facility with the facility there on Radio Road. What I think is truly remarkable when it comes to that is I have worked with our administration and they've been very supportive, as well as you, that we are going to work with consultants, we're going to work with contractors that are going to work with our kids. So we have said, if you're going to come in and do the HVAC work, then you're also going to come in and talk to my kids in the construction trades program or my welding program or my engineering program in regards to the work that goes into those different opportunities. As we end up doing plant management, because we're going to have to put in some more gravel, we're going to have to look at the wastewater as far as where water is going, all those different pieces, they're going to work with our kids in regards to the work that they're doing. There's no better way to get a kid proud, and as Lori talked about, the pride that we have in our district, when they're part of building that building. You know, a lot of our kids from last year already did some of the demo work in the building, and they talk about that. I went in and I did this, I went in and I did that. So we're very blessed that we have this opportunity to bring that to Whitley County. As you continue to the next one, again, just a reminder, last year, we were recognized as a school that was awarded for excellence in student pathways. So again, really making sure the students that come through the high school doors know themselves, have had opportunities to really get to know and think about what they want their future to look like, and never be pigeonholed and never be siloed in saying that I'm either going to do this or that. They can do it all. And it's just a matter of what works for them and what works for their family and what works for their passions and how they're going to accomplish those goals. So very excited about that work. And that work also brought in $250,000. So we're really excited about that. The next document you see there is our CDL certification with a perfect pass rate. We had 4 gentlemen that participated in that. I will tell you that one, I still get phone calls about from across the state. How do you do such a thing? How can you make this happen? And just give me an idea and I'll let you say, watch me, because there's not really much you can't do, especially when we're surrounded by amazing community partners like NDOT that said, here's our space, go ahead and use it free of charge. It's up to you to be able to do, because we know we're generating students with skills that are needed in our community as well as Northeast Indiana, if not all over the state. So we're very excited about that. We are excited to continue to run the CDL program. We are running the first cohort ever in the state of Indiana to do a fall session. So I have 2 young men who are already 18 who are participating in that session. Will start in October. So we're excited about that. As you look at the next page, you see the celebration of our internships and our career signings. We had a number of students on May 27th. We represented 175 internship experiences, and we had 21 seniors sign with their employers. For those that may not be athletically inclined, this is the best thing to the next signing of what they're going to do, because they already have the plan for that Monday after graduation. They're not going to wake up going, now what? Now what am I supposed to do? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do what I need to do? They've already got that plan worked out. A lot of them are doing this with education embedded. So whether they're doing the InFame program, whether they're doing an apprenticeship program, they're continuing to learn. It just might look different than a traditional 4-year collegiate degree, and that's okay. So we want to make sure that we also celebrate the fact that they are lifelong learners and they're going to continue to devote and learn in their career field. We continue on the next one to celebrate our 100% pass rate for welding. So our students earn American Welding Society certification. Our students last year, you can get it in different positions. There's 1G, 2G, things along those lines. Most of our students earn it in multiple positions. So it's not just, I'm welding right here, but I'm potentially welding above my head. I'm welding in a variety of different positions, and that takes skill, time, and perseverance. So we're very excited. One, to celebrate our instructor, Mr. Rusher, who is a career welder himself that we pulled from industry to be able to teach our students, and they respond accordingly. The next one you see there is our college and career fair. Notice the word and, college and career, because at the end of the day, the kids that go to college still need employment. So they're still preparing themselves for that world of a career. So how we get there, again, is individualized, but we want to support students whatever path they choose. So we want to make sure that we had 800 Whitley County students. We do open this opportunity up to Cherubusco and Whitco schools as well. So we bring them in, and then we have a room with colleges, we have a room with careers, and kids can go back and forth as they seem to do so to gather the information that they need. The next one again was our CDL program because it continues to be groundbreaking in that regard. The next document talks about winning the golden shovel, and you've heard me talk about this one quite a bit, but for be a first-year construction trades program to go out and win a state competition cold, I think is pretty darn exciting. So we're very excited about that opportunity. We're excited to go back. October 1st is this next year's golden shovel competition. We had 3 students that won the golden shovel that were also recipients of a scholarship for crane certification. So they are also credentialed in that as well. That credential is good for 5 years across the country. So very excited about the opportunities here. Because of this work, there's a new competition called Below the Hook. We are one of 3 schools in the state of Indiana that have been selected to participate in this starting event, and that will take place on September 23rd. It's us, Garrett High School, and Fort Wayne Community Schools. So Northeast Indiana is represented well, and also we're the ones that are leading the state with this work. Again, a reminder that we have an amazing automotive program that started off last year as well. Mr. Cooney was hired directly from industry. He's a master mechanic, ASE certified, and we have students where we partnered with Casey Shirey and City Auto Mall to build a program. We hire the staff, we support the students, and they provide us the building. And they have done so very nicely to the point that Mr. Shirey came to me earlier this summer and said, I'm remodeling because you need more space. And I went, thank you, because we do. So really excited about that. We do have students coming to us from Cherubusco for this program as well. This is one that is open to all 3 school districts here in our county. And continue to talk about our fire truck. We did buy one from Columbia Township for the whopping price of $1, but we're very excited about that. Part of the new CTE building is to find a place to put my fire truck. And I say mine because who else can say they have a fire truck? So we're really excited about that. Our fire program continues to lead the state. There have been at least 3 programs in Northeast Indiana that started because of our work. They took what we've been doing and said, we need to do that too. When we talked to the Redevelopment Commission, there was a number of people there that have involvement with our fire service on the volunteer as well as the city side. And they wouldn't be able to keep their programs going without this program. I believe Columbia Township stated that they had at one point 16 volunteers, which is barely enough to survive, and now they have 36. So the whole work of what we do perpetuates locally with our kids as well as in our community. So we're very thankful for that. And then the last part was again celebrating our RDC and the fact that they did support us when we built the new Columbia City High School. So we wanted to make sure to acknowledge their involvement in their support of our community as well as our programs as well. So really just wanted to give you a brief snapshot of what we presented to them. And then on your left-hand side of your handout was our data sheet as well as the layout of the new CTE at Radio Road, just to give them an idea of what we're planning and what we're doing. Those programs, again, to support that would be welding, construction trades, EMT, fire rescue, criminal justice. So really excited about what we can offer there, as well as, again, supporting all of Whitley County, because those programs are ones that we welcome students from Cherubusco, Whitco, West Noble, and Wawasee. So really excited about that. And you know me, I like handouts because when people stop you, I want you to have a visual. So now you have a visual to take with you, and I'll continue to provide you visuals every month. Any questions, thoughts?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I was privileged to hear Jennifer and Lori's presentation to the Redevelopment Commission as the member from this board. And they're kind of a hard group to impress. And they were extremely impressed. And part of this presentation is to ask them for more money. And I think they'll be forthcoming with that money. So I can't thank Jennifer and Lori enough for this program, which I think is one of the stellar on the state. But I also wanted to say that your program would not be available without excellent leadership from our administration, including Laura and Seth and Todd. And that doesn't happen by accident. And I think everyone needs to be acknowledged for the success of this program.
Absolutely.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Brady Mullet, Columbia City High School. That's we are very, very excited for this coming school year. Obviously, all of the work that has been done by our teachers, our administration, school board, Jennifer and Lori and her team for all the opportunities for kids. It's absolutely incredible. I really wanted to say thank you to Laura and Seth. We had a great keynote speaker, Mr. Tom Murray, came and spoke to our staff. He's the author of the book called Personal and Authentic. He's an educational author and just talked a lot about how we impact our students, getting to know them in order to help educate them and really being aware of our students. And it was just, I feel like sometimes that when people come and speak, right, that I just felt like his speak the past and even last year with Sean Buchanan, we've just had incredible people that have motivated and just gotten our staff kind of pumped up for the school year. So I want to thank you all for that opportunity. We've had 2 days at the high school right now, and at this point, the biggest celebration I have is that we have had through opportunities to share students and programs, we've had growing enrollment, 1,223 full-time students right now in our building. And then an additional, I believe at this point, last it was 31. I believe 31 students from different or surrounding high schools come in at different times in the day. So a little reminiscent of Jennifer and I's days before the new building of having shuttles and buses picking up and dropping off at different times and students walking in. And it's been really neat. You kind of forget, have had today a couple of kids from Cherubusco walked in and were just, oh, so they walked in or leaving during lunch and just eye-opening. And so I think that's just a testament of the little bit the flexibility we're going to have a little bit from our previous discussion, but it still is a place that people obviously are wanting to come to. And we had, with all that enrollment of 1,223 full-time students, we had 3 students register and try to enroll today. So we are continuing to grow, which is good. And it just shows the work that everybody is doing in our community for our schools. So thank you very much.
I'd like to celebrate the back to school as well. I had the privilege to go to the middle school, and what an operation that was with an open house. And they even had a family night for 6th graders. It was really nice for them, and applaud to Seth and some of the others handing out all the Chromebooks. We had to scan those out, and that was, I know how much of a, they had a well-oiled machine. That's all I'll say. They had people scrambling in the back from, I think, custodial staff and some others around there. So they handed, I don't know how many Chromebooks, but that was impressive. The line was very long and they went through pretty quick. So applaud to all the staff members out there. I thought that was neat, how they worked that out. That is not easy to do when you have that amount of technology.
I've got a couple. I would like to celebrate the cooperation that we've continued to see. I heard it a couple of times between our districts in the county. That's one of the potential solutions long-term to some of our financial issues, is continuing to evolve that. So I appreciate that. I would also just like to say thank you to City Auto Mall. We saw the help that we've received from them with our CTE programs, but also we announced our Teacher of the Year and Staff Member of the Year. And just to remind you, they donate the use of a car for a year. Hill Group Insurance stepped up this year to help cover the cost of insurance and other things for the teacher. And then for the Staff Member of the Year, it's a $1,000 check. So they have, as an organization, have really stepped up and supported the schools. Other celebrations? Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment. We have one this evening. Peter?
Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Board of the School Trustees. If you have come to make a statement, ask a question, or represent a group or activity, we would like to recognize your presence. School employees, parents, and members of the public are expected to treat one another with civility, courtesy, and respect in words and actions. You will have 3 minutes to speak to the board. No one may speak more than one time. As you speak, keep in mind the following. Preface your comments by providing your name and group affiliation, if any. Comments made to the board are public comments. All statements should be directed to the full board. No person may address or question board members individually. Public comments which are harassing or repetitive will be stopped. Personal attacks are not permitted under any circumstances. If your speech becomes inflammatory, we will ask you to leave the podium. It is the policy of the WCCS board to listen to your comments or questions. However, we do not respond during the meeting.
Name's Peter Gangler. Beginning of this meeting, you all said the Pledge of Allegiance, and the last part is with liberty and justice for all. I've been up here giving you laws and arguing for Miss Devine and giving you the actual codes for what you have done to her is illegal and unconstitutional. You do not have the authority of the judicial system. You need that in order to deprive someone of a constitutional right. Civics 101 used to be taught in high school, required to graduate your senior year. Now, I don't know if it's arrogance. I don't know if it's ignorance. I don't know if it's hubris. But Miss Devine was up here last year and asked for an apology. That's all she asked for. And for you to retract any negative remarks against her child's file. And you all didn't. You all pushed it. And now we are looking at a lawsuit that is going to cost our county, because of your arrogance, taxpayer money that could go to teaching kids. So what's it going to take? How intelligent do you have to be to figure out what the risk reward status of any individual case has to be before you just say, hey, maybe I ought to get off my high horse and just make an apology? Because now you're looking at spending money for lawyers and court costs. Honestly, I think it should come all out of your pockets, not the county, because this is something that could have been handled very easily, and it should have been handled very easily, because you violated her First, Fifth, and 14th Amendment without the court system being involved, which it has to be. How would you like it if someone arbitrarily told you you could not stand up and speak in public, or you couldn't speak to anybody that you saw on the street, or a public officer, such as these gentlemen, if they were on the street and I stopped to talk to them, or they stopped to talk to me, how would you like it? You wouldn't. You would complain.
30 seconds.
You would do everything you could to turn around and make an issue of it if you thought they violated your rights. So I don't know if it's willful arrogance, willful ignorance, but you all need to pay attention to what's going on and quit costing our children the money they need to be educated, because you all are looking at 50% averages, and that is garbage, and you've done nothing to fix it.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions regarding the consent agenda? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve consent items. Personnel report has. I'm getting there. Where's the
On the personnel report, there's an error in one of the names. So we've got Amy Davidson, who was extended school year provider. And then instead of Amy Brown, Amy Davidson is mentioned again as the assessment and data coordinator.
Saw that.
Additional role. So Amy Brown at Indian Springs will be taking on those additional duties, not Amy Davidson.
We'll make that correction. I move we make a correction to the, what is it?
The
The
person-
personnel report as outlined by Mr. Slater. I'll get it.
A motion, do we have a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Would then ask for a motion for approval of the consent agenda as a whole.
Do we have a second? I can't remember.
We have James,
Oh.
Mr. Renberger made the motion.
I'll second.
Mary Ann seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. The next item is approval of the purchase of staff laptops, Chromebooks. We discussed this at the last meeting. Are there any further questions or comments regarding that? If there are none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
I motion to approve the purchase of staff laptops as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have a number of adjunct teacher permits and adjunct teacher employment agreements. Dr. McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And these are coming to you. You did not have this at the work session because we didn't have the names at that time. Right now, the first one is a teacher permit for Adam Markley. He is employed through Parkview. He does our strengths training at the high school. He has a master's in science and health kinesiology and sports studies from Texas A&M. And 5+ years experience. So we're recommending that the board approve an adjunct teacher permit for him. That would allow us to, the money that we pay Parkview for his services then could be part of our 65% basically turned into the state.
In the interest of time, if, unless someone has an objection, I would suggest we just run through these and then vote on them all together.
Okay. All right, the second one is Tamara Goda, and you provided her a permit last year. She has a Master's of Arts in Child Study from Tufts University in Boston, Applied Child Development, and this adjunct teacher permit is for English Language Arts teacher part-time at the high school. The next one is Sarah Kirkpatrick. You did give her an adjunct teacher permit last meeting. However, she's been reassigned to another position. So you provided it for a job skills coach. She's sliding into transition coordinator, a position that was vacated by an employee who went to basically Smith Green. So she's sliding into that position. So this adjunct teacher permit is for the position of transition coordinator. Again, she has a Bachelor of Science in Early Childhood Administration from Purdue. And then the last one is Warren Harold. You also gave him one last year for in-school suspension supervision and resource support. He has a master's in school administration and supervision from the University of the State of New York. So those are the permits that we're asking for.
Anybody have any questions or comments regarding these? If not, I'd ask for a motion for approval of action items B through H.
I move that we approve the adjunct teacher's permit for Adam Markley, Tamara Goda, Sarah Kirkpatrick, and Warren Harold, if I got the names right.
I'll second.
Actually, I guess. Okay, that's fine.
Just to clarify, is that the approval of both the adjunct teacher permit and the employment agreements, Dave?
Well, that's where I was headed
Okay.
originally.
Oops.
I
We
think that
just-
was just for the permits,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
So it would be
B,
B,
D, and
B,
E.
and E.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have to have a separate motion for the other.
I move that we approve all of those that we just talked about.
Okay.
Michigan.
Can anyone second any better than that?
I'll second what he said. How's that?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. We will then look at the adjunct teacher employment agreements, F
Thank-
through H.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The first employment agreement is for Tamara Goda. And again, she's part-time English language arts teacher, and the rest of her day will be paraprofessional. So when you total those two positions up, it comes up to 36,500. 3 paid sick days, 2 paid personal days, long-term disability, life insurance. That's in that one. And then for Sarah Kirkpatrick, now this one will supersede the permit or the agreement that you approved last time. So this is for transition coordinator. Again, this is a certified position. It's total salary of 47,200, 7 paid sick days, 2 paid personal days, long-term disability and life insurance. And then for Mr. Warren Harold, this runs from September 2nd to May 15th. Now, this is different. The other ones ran for the entire school year. He's to provide up to 50 days at $150 a day for that in-school suspension and resource support, for a total of $7,500 over the course of the year.
Any questions regarding those? Not, I'd entertain a motion for approval of items F through H.
I move we accept items F, G, H, adjunct teacher employment agreements.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Then move on to approval of first reads for bylaws and several policies that were presented at our last meeting. We'll vote on these individually and just so everyone is aware, this is first reading. It's not the final approval. We'll do the final approval at a second read in August board meeting or September. First one is revision of board bylaw 0142, election and appointment. Are there any questions or comments regarding that? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the first reading of the revised board bylaw 0142.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Second one is approval to repeal board policy 2410, audio and video taping at meetings. This was redundant. That's why it's being removed.
I move to approve the first reading to repeal board policy 2410, audio video taping of meetings.
A second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is the approval of revision of board policy 3121, 4121, personal background checks and mandatory reporting of convictions, and substantiated child abuse arrests.
Could I make a comment just on clarification, Laura? Are most of these being driven by changes at the state?
Yes,
So that-
all
that's-
legislative.
Okay, so that's why we're having to go through this. Okay. Just wanted to make sure everyone knew that that's what we're doing by passing new policy and repealing old ones. We're mandated to do that.
You don't have to wait for me to ask for.
I know. Move that we approve the first reading of board policy 3121 and 4121.
A second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is approval to repeal board policy 322001, teacher appreciation grant. This has been, this is no longer something we just receive. It is something we would have to apply for.
Move that we approve the first reading of board policy 3220.01.
And that's for the repeal.
That's correct.
Is there something we're doing in its place down the road? Is there something that's been talked about to maybe incentive wise?
So what we've talked about is actually applying for the grant that the state will be taking its place. And then, of course, we have the employee recognition program that's ongoing.
Yeah.
Staff recognition, teacher recognition.
I second the approval to repeal board policy 3220.01.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is approval of the revision of board policy 5111, determination of legal settlement and eligibility for enrollment of students without legal settlement in the corporation. Any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I motion to approve the first reading of the revised board policy 5111.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is approval of revision of board policy 5200, attendance.
I move that we approve the revision of the first reading of revision of board policy 5220. Or 5200, sorry. I can't read.
You're doing great. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is approval of revision of board policy 5330, use of medication.
I move that we approve the first reading of board policy 5330.
A second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is approval of revision of board policy 8355, authorization for audio, video, and digital recording. Questions?
This is the revision. Okay, not the repeal.
Correct.
I move that we approve the revision of the first reading of the revision of board policy 8355.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. And the final one is approval of revision of board policy 8400, school safety.
Move that we approve the first reading of board policy 8400.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. That concludes action items. Next item on the agenda, general information, I read 3 results. Seth?
Yeah, thank you for this. Just want to take a moment to share, we talked last month about I learned data and kind of where we were at. And so on Wednesday of last week, the state released the iRead achievement data. And so again, just want to take some time to walk through what this means for our district. One point of clarification, this is coming off the state's slides, which by the way, featured like 8 or 9 slides that had our kids in them, which was super cool. The state came last year and did a feature video shoot of Northern Heights. And so several of the slides had our teachers in it, had our kids in it. So it was pretty exciting for those kids to see themselves on the slides. I'm sure none of them were tuned in watching the state board, the 2-hour state board meeting, but it's still pretty cool that they were there. So just a point of clarification, iRead is a measure of foundational reading skills. So success on iRead is important. It helps us know if those students are going to be able to read at grade level. And again, that ability to read then translates into long-term achievement. And so that's one of the things that we really want to look at and make sure that every kid is capable of reading at grade level. So that way the prospects of them achieving at grade level over the rest of their academic career is there. The major difference when we look at reading versus the ELA iLearn score, which they're not the same, right? As I'll share, we had really high iRead scores, but our iLearn ELA scores were at the state average, maybe a little bit below in elementary, and then at the high school or at the middle school we were looking really good, but again, still lower than where we want them to be. The difference is that you've got reading comprehension in there. You also have writing in there. You also have the ability to communicate in there. And again, that's not the same as can I sound out the words, put them together. And one of the big pieces of this is like, do students understand grammar? Do students understand the difference between being able to sound out the word and the various potential meanings of that word in context? And so there is a difference. And so we want to look at, and we need to continue as a district to work towards that iLearn proficiency, especially as we know kids have stronger foundational reading skills than what they've ever had before. This year, as you look at those district averages, for iRead 3, and this is 3rd grade iRead performance, taking into account last year's 2nd graders who passed, and then the 3rd graders who, again, didn't pass, but were performing on track last year, and even many of them who were at risk. We had a 92.4% passing rate for our district, which is an increase over last year of 6.4%. The state increase or the state average was 87.3%. Their increase was the highest ever statewide, of just shy of 5%. In 23-24, the state saw an increase of almost 1%, which was the highest ever increase for the state at just about 1%. So the state went from 1% growth to almost 5% growth. For us as a district, last year we were at 87.9% in the 23-24 school year, which was growth for us as well. But this year we saw nearly 6.5% growth over that. And so one of the 2 main points. One, this is the highest our reading scores on iRead have been ever. iRead's been around since 2012, I believe, 2012, 2013, I think was the first year of implementation. And in that, when that occurred, our state average, or our average was right around 90%. We stayed about 90% into like 2019 era. And then just like everybody else, all the scores dropped, bottomed out quite a bit. And then, we're seeing that back, but we've not only bounced back, we bounced back and then beyond some. So, which is super exciting. I think it's also really important to point out that we're seeing the dividends of the literacy cadre. We're seeing the dividends of the investment in the work that our teachers are doing at the foundational level. We're seeing the investment and kind of the outcomes of UFly implementation. And again, of those really foundational skills that our reading coaches, that our reading specialists, that our primary grade teachers, that our 3rd grade teachers are working on, again, to make sure kids are successful. And that's, again, worth celebrating. And it's super cool for us to be able to share tonight. But again, that's the highest the district's ever been at. So again, we're there. When you get to this point, though, it stays hard, right? Because then we start talking about cohorts. And every cohort is dramatically different from the cohort that came before it. And so, with this year, the 24-25 cohort, we saw growth across the board compared to the prior year of third graders. At Coesi, we saw a 6.2% growth, again, right on track with kind of the district. At Little Turtle, we saw a plus 5% growth. At Mary Raber, we saw a 7% growth. At Northern Heights, when you get to the 98, 99% passing grade, it's really hard to keep seeing growth. But we got almost to 99% growth. And what that translates into is at Coesi, the state sets a threshold of 95%. The state threshold is 95% of all third graders by 2027 will be able to read. We'll pass iRead. We'll be able to read at grade level. For Coesi, that means one student. At Mary Raber, that's one student. At Northern Heights, 100% was one student. And so when we're looking at the cohort sizes, if 2 students don't pass or if 3 students don't pass, especially when we're seeing some growth in some of these, we might see those numbers dip a little bit, but that's still pretty fantastic when you're looking at the overall numbers. So the other really exciting point is when we look back to 23 or 22, 23, we had about 40 students in the district who did not pass iRead. And this year we're down to 24. And so continuing to see that positive growth that even as some of our cohorts are growing is again worth noting and worth celebrating that we're reducing the number of kids who are scoring lower. And again, those students are going to continue to have opportunities to get intervention with some of the work that we're going to be doing this coming year. Those kids are going to continue to have that one-on-one support so they are able to pass and they are able to perform at their highest capability. But again, that's really important to note. We did not have any students who I'm going to say non-IEP students. We did not have any non-IEP students not pass. We do have a handful of students who, despite their best efforts, it's going to be a very big challenge for them to get to that point. But we still want to strive to make sure that those kids have the strongest ability to read as possible. And so, again, continuing to reduce that number to 0 as best as we can is really important. Questions about third grade? Last point is second grade. So again, when we look at what we're doing in kindergarten with phonetic development, what we're doing in first grade with word recognition and all of those pieces. Last year, our second grade students, 39% of them scored as on track, 39% of them scored as proficient in reading. And so 39% meant 61% were either on track or at risk. We saw that 61% in third grade this year. Most of those kids performed, most of those kids went on to pass. This year's group of second grade, again, early foundational reading means long-term, stronger capacity for long-term excellence. And so this year we went from 39% of second graders proficient or on track to 54% proficient or on track for this year. So again, those students are looking great. And as we look at next year, then a large chunk of those kids will not have to take iRead because they've already passed it, which then allows our teachers to prioritize support for the kids who need it most. And so again, that early recognition, that early identification is really important. So again, a number worth celebrating, and we can't praise our teachers enough for the way they've implemented our reading curriculum, for the way they're working with kids, wraparound services for kids to make sure that they're on track for long-term success. Questions?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. And I remember a few years ago when we were making some tough decisions on how to change this trajectory. And it was not necessarily always an easy thing to promote a change in the way we do things. But I just want to thank all of the all of the staff that are working with these kids and have embraced the changes that we need to make to be able to see the changes that we're seeing. And I thank you, administration, for having the foresight to see that this needed to be done and to make the tough decisions. Doesn't necessarily make you popular, but they were tough decisions that needed to be made. And I think we're seeing the benefit of that. So thank you.
Yeah, one piece I didn't add for our third grade kids, we saw when we look at our at-risk populations, the students who are free and reduced lunch, the students who might be have academic challenges, we saw growth there too. So a couple of our schools saw more than 10% growth in their special ed population. Again, so I say growth reduction, right? Too. We had a lot fewer students in those populations. The same thing with our free and reduced lunch kids, those kids with again, demographic challenges, they also grew almost 10%. So again, it's all of our staff, you know, in multiple areas that are wrapping around kids.
Other questions, comments? It's wonderful information. It's great to see the growth. So I'll echo I appreciate, take a team effort to get it done, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. Next meeting is Tuesday, September 2nd, moved to Tuesday, obviously because of Labor Day. And then following work session is on September 22nd. So that was pushed out a week because of the ISBA conference. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.
We can be able to go down to SBA.
Yep.